Link to part 1 is in the description below. And welcome back. All right, so we are here to talk about the Star Wars television shows, and there is a lot to talk about, which is why we are going to be sticking primarily to the canonical TV shows now. So I know a lot of people like that Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars, the 2D animated Clone Wars shorts that were on Cartoon Network, but those aren't canon anymore, so we're not going to talk about that. The like I think I mentioned before, the 2D with droids TV show with C3PO and R2D2, and then I think there was an Ewoks show in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, you haven't seen, that's not like your favorite Star Wars show, is it? Like,
Nah.
So if you guys don't mind, but there's still plenty to talk about. So let's start with the Clone Wars, Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Soon, the galaxy will be remade. The Jedi and the Republic will die.
I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi.
Great care we must take.
Why would anyone walk away from being a Jedi? We were trained to be keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
We clones have mixed feelings about the war. Without it, we wouldn't exist.
All part of the plan. The plan. Everything is about to change. Choice made has led to this.
Or on Cartoon Network, how they call it, Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Do you remember that back in the day? They had
Star
the black
Wars, the Clone Wars.
Yeah, they had a black guy doing the bumpers.
Star Wars: The Clone Wars will be right back. Star Wars: The Clone Wars now continues.
It's like, it's time to go back to Star Wars: The Clone Wars on Cartoon Network. Okay, so like I just kind of I mentioned it earlier, but this was my gateway into the Star Wars universe, and I gotta say, this is probably my favorite. It's probably my favorite animated series of all time. Like, it's up there with SpongeBob. It's up there with the regular show. Like, I rewatched it recently all the way through, and I absolutely love this show. I adore Star Wars: The Clone Wars. It's special to me. It's special to me because I was there from the beginning. You know, I remember the first episode they put on Cartoon Network with Yoda and the clones, the rookies. It was a great episode. And then, I remember each week, I had the DVR set to play Clone to record Clone Wars. So I was there from the beginning, the highs, the lows, when it got canceled because Disney bought Lucasfilm, and then when Netflix put the sixth season on Netflix. As soon as I got Netflix for the first time, I was in college. I had to watch for my I had an English course, and we had to watch House of Cards for homework. And so I had to get Netflix. And as soon as I was done watching House of Cards, I went straight to Clone Wars to see the new episodes. And then, I was so excited when Disney said they were going to finally end the series again. I mean, for the third time, they're going to have like a actual final season on Disney Plus. So to be there for a show from the beginning all the way to the end, like I don't know if there are many shows you could say that about. Um, Especially in this age of streaming where like nowadays you could jump in at any point and like rewatch, the earlier stuff. But yeah, Clone Wars, it's basically a spinoff of that one line that Obi-Wan said in A New Hope, where he says, "Oh yeah, your father and I fought in the Clone Wars." And like little kids watching the movie at the time was like, "What's the Clone Wars? I wonder if they'll ever delve into that." Um, but yeah, it takes place between episodes episodes 2 and episode 3. It's what it is. It's what it says. It's dealing with the Jedi Knights fighting alongside the clone troopers, fighting against the Separatists and the Sith. And it's just a bunch of war stories. They're going to different planets. There's a lot of politics and
And they're clones.
clones. The thing about this is that it does where, George Lucas, like we said, he's an ideas guy. He built this incredible world, but his writing isn't always necessarily the best. But Clone Wars was able to take his ideas and expand upon them. So now you have these characters that we know from the movies. You have Anakin and Obi-Wan. You start going deeper into who these characters are, developing their relationship, developing, especially Anakin, developing, who he is, so it makes sense why he would eventually turn to the dark side and become Darth Vader. And not only that, but you also have the clones who are, just nameless characters in the movies. But here, even though they all look the same, I mean, they do kind of fun stuff where some of them they'll have like different haircuts, like some of them they'll be like bald, or some will like dye their hair blonde, some have like goatees and mustaches and stuff, or tattoos. But they're all voiced by the same guy, D. Bradley Baker, but the acting's so good and the writing is so good that you really get to care about these characters, these clones. And a few of them you actually grow really attached to. So there's a lot to say about this, but I'll let you go into your how you feel
That's
about this one.
crazy. Like imagine having hundreds of thousands of clones of Sean with different personalities. Like that's crazy. It
Yeah,
just popped in my brain like that whole idea of cloning. Will we ever get to that point in life where we
I hope
can
not. I hope not, because it's going to be an us situation.
and they're gonna want to kill us and whatever. But
I got
yeah, man.
5 on it.
Um, I think the Clone Wars. I may have to agree with you. I'm trying to figure like when did it officially come out? Well, like in 2005,
2008.
2008. Okay,
So
okay, so okay.
the movie. So it started off as a movie. Originally, it was just going to be a TV show initially, and George Lucas, I don't know if it was him or who, decided to just take the first 3 episodes and put them together and make them a feature-length film. And so the pilot is essentially a theatrical
Oh
pilot.
yeah, this movie. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
Okay.
I will say that movie isn't great. Like it's not. The animation is really stiff. It's very. They
Yeah,
look like
yeah, yeah.
wooden toys. And the writing, it's very. It's very. I don't know. It's definitely like a pilot in the sense that you have a really good show that may take a few episodes to find its footing. And so the Clone Wars movie was definitely the show finding its footing. Fortunately, since they got the first the prototype out the way with the movie, when the actual show starts proper on Cartoon Network, the
Hmm.
first episode, rookies with Yoda and the clones and everything, that's great. So like
Yeah.
first season ends up being incredible. But anyway, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was saying it's so. I like the pacing of it, and I liked how they were telling the stories of the clones, and they were telling the stories of certain Jedi's. Anakin's Padawan, Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Like I think I may have to agree with you. I think Clone Wars is definitely in my top favorite of animations. Um, I enjoyed the fight scenes too. I love me some action,
Yeah.
some good old fashioned action. But I also love the dramatic points that they had in certain episodes.
Yeah.
Even and as it progressed, they had the bounty hunters, Cad Bane in them,
Cad Bane.
um, Mr. Blue Skin, Red Eyes.
Yeah.
That was a nice aesthetic. Like when I saw him, he was just nice.
What I loved about Cad Bane, they introduced him in the season finale of the first season, and all the trailers were pumping it up, like hyping it up, saying like, "You don't know who this guy is. You aren't ready for Cad Bane."
Yeah.
And the thing about him was that first episode he's in, he actually wins. Like he's a bad guy,
Hmm.
and he actually gets away with what he's trying to do. Like I think it was like a heist that he was trying to do, and he actually succeeds. Like he's able to outsmart the Jedi and the clones, and he gets
Yeah.
away with it. And that's the thing about like the show is that it's okay. The show is not afraid to have the villains actually win some because it is a war, and in a war, the good guys aren't always going to win. And so the show was
Hmm.
actually able to go there. Anyway, continue.
I like how it escalated as it got closer to the end.
Yeah,
Like, if I'm not mistaken, there was a point where Anakin went to this planet of this Force planet
yeah, the
where
Force God.
the
Yeah,
Force where it originated or something like that, and it was showing him like his future and him turning into this monster,
yeah,
aka Darth Vader, and he was battling, having an internal battle. Even when they were showing the Mandalorian, the Death
yeah,
Watch, and
yeah.
all that. Um, and I was gonna say something. I was gonna say when they brought back Darth
Maul.
Maul,
Yeah,
and they also tell you that Maul has a brother named Savage.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
what a name! It's spelled
Savage
Savage.
Opress. Yeah.
It's spelled Savage Oppressor.
Yeah.
Um,
Savage Opress. He had
and one
that
of my
song, Savage Opress, he had that theme song. There's like, oh, like it's like this real like chant, like this weird like Hungarian chant whenever he did anything.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, okay, so the thing with the Clone Wars that like I never really understood, people, especially older people, well, I don't know, it's just like people in general, they were saying that the show didn't get good until the third season. They said like, oh, you can skip season one and season two, like that's for kids, but it
That's
doesn't
stupid.
start. It is. It's like I don't know what show they watch. Like the first I don't know. The first season, like it deals with there's like genocide and there's like murder suicide in there. There's
Hmm.
decapitations and like just all this kind of dealing with war and politics. Is like I don't understand like where they got that it's a kid show. Like the thing with this show is that like it's not just because it's on Cartoon Network. It's just what it is. It's a Star Wars show that just so happens to be animated. But the fact that it's
Hmm.
animated doesn't inform what it is or the writing or anything. Like they're able to get away with a lot of crazy stuff on this show. Um, and there's a point in like season two where this one guy, he's like a religious dude, and he like can't take the pressure of what's going on. That he just like he throws himself off a building, commits suicide, and he crash lands on the ground, but it doesn't kill him. And so he like lifts his arm up and he starts like saying something, like chanting something in his language, and then he dies. And that's like pretty traumatic. Like for if this were like a kid show, that's like really traumatic. You can't. That's not something like they would be able to get away with. So I don't know. It's almost like really dismissive to say just because it's animation, like it's just for kids. But even
I
still,
also
like, oh, go ahead.
I also like how they expanded on a lot of characters that we might not have heard of before.
Mm.
They was exposing us to new characters. I also like how they exposed us to Grievous backstory. I like that episode a lot because I was just
Yeah.
curious how he
Layer of
was just
Grievous.
a warrior, linked for battle, having relics of people and creatures. And,
Yeah, yeah.
as he progresses, he started to modify his body until he became this freak, this
Yeah,
nasty looking freak.
I like how he's a coward. Like he's still a coward
Yeah,
on the
still a
show.
coward.
Like every time, like he's only like when he's fighting kids. That's the only time he doesn't like run away. But
Hmm.
whenever someone starts to get the upper hand, he just like crawls away like a spider,
I'm
which
out of
is
here.
um. And I like how like he's the one villain on the show that's like not like one recurring villain that's like not particularly deep, but like it's almost
Hmm.
intentional. Like there's an episode where it's just him like just going doing an assault, just fighting the clones, and like Obi-Wan, he's fighting Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan asks him, he's like, "What are you doing this for, man? Like, why are you doing this? This doesn't make any sense." And Grievous just says, like, "I just want to like command the greatest droid army in the galaxy. Like, that's all I want. Like, it's not that complicated." And Obi-Wan's like, "That
Hmm.
doesn't." So like, I do like how they were able to just add that to that character. Um, the thing about people not liking the first two seasons is that like the first two seasons are great. Like they're like even rewatching it is like it from the
I
get go.
enjoyed
Like
every
it's
last
great.
episode.
Um, the first season they have a lot of standalone episodes or maybe like two parters. Uh,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then but I mean they're good. The only thing about the first season I would say is that the animation is still it's in it's still there's some growing pains I would say. Like it looks the most like a video game in that first season. It looks cool, but definitely some of the characters are stiff, and like the lightsaber battles, which there are a lot of in that first season, are pretty stiff I would say. But fortunately it does get better the longer the show goes on. um, Second season again it's great. They start doing more long form storytelling, where they have these like multiple episode arcs. And there's one where they go back to Geonosis, the planet from episode two, where with the arena with the with the bug aliens. Um,
Yeah.
and it's really creepy because like the first couple episodes it's just a battle, like a really tense battle on the planet, and then it turns into a zombie story because you remember
Hmm.
they had the parasites that were infecting the
Yeah.
clones. uh,
Hmm.
it was really creepy, it was really cool. And then second season is when they introduce the Mandalorians. So like they go to Mandalore, and
Death Watch.
Obi-Wan hits up his old flame, Duchess Satine, who looks
Hmm.
like Kate Blanchett. um,
Yeah.
that first episode, it was written by Paul Dini, which people may know from Batman the animated series, and you could tell like the dialogue is so on point in that
Amazing.
episode,
Yeah.
especially just between Obi-Wan and Satine, just the tension between the two of them because there's something in their past
The
when
sexual tension.
yeah, yeah,
Them
yeah.
lightsabers clashing.
And that like does so much for Obi-Wan's character. Like there's a point where he says like, "Hey, if you had asked me, I would have like dropped the Jedi and just lived with you." um and it does so much for that character because that he understands what Anakin is going through as far as his
Yeah.
relationship with Padme. um and just introducing the Mandalorians because they will be pretty important in later years. That whole
Hmm.
storyline's great. I would say season three, the first half of season three is probably that's probably the rough patch for me because I don't know if you remember, but it was just episodes upon episodes of political thrillers where it was just nothing but Padme fighting corruption in the Senate, and like
Hmm.
people trying to poison her and people trying to like get blackmail on this character and this character. It's just a lot of political espionage going on, and it's kind of a drag to get through, I would say. I don't. Do you remember that? Because
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's when Cad Bane and his crew showed up a few times, didn't he?
that was the one like bright spot in the middle of that section, like that first half of season three. They do show up at one
Hmm.
point, and that's great because Cad Bane has a fight with Obi-Wan where he actually wields a lightsaber for a couple seconds, and he actually like
Yeah.
holds his own. And it's like, man, this dude, he's not a Sith or anything, but he's able to like
He
stand
ain't
his
no
own
chump.
against the Jedi. Yeah. Uh, but around those, there's a bunch of weird episodes where it's just like the corruption in the Senate, and you got to fight in politics, and you got to pay that guy off. And it's just like when you're watching it week to week, where there's only one episode per week on Cartoon Network, it's like, all right, come on, guys, let's get into something else. Fortunately, halfway through the season, that's when they switch it up, and that's when you get the arc with what's the name, Ventress, Dooku's
Yeah, Asajj
apprentice.
Ventress.
Yeah,
Asajj Ventress. Yes, yes, yes.
she's from Dathomir, and you get her story with
With the witches.
the Night Sisters. You go to her planet, and that's where they introduce. They have that great episode where they're trying to kill Dooku, and so
Hmm.
they almost made Count Dooku like an anti-hero because he's like fighting against them. And do you remember they like blinded him, and
Yeah,
they're so he can't see, but he's so powerful in the Force that he's still able to like hold his own against
great with
them.
it. Uh-huh.
Um, that was cool. And then that's when they introduced your boy Savage Opress.
Savage.
And the thing about those episodes is it's nothing but the villains. From there, there's like no heroes, like no good guys in
Hmm.
it. So again, it's like, the show being willing to, not even show the main characters, but like actually
Yeah.
develop the bad guys. So you care about them too. And at the end of that first Savage story arc, they say, "Oh, by the way, your brother, he's still alive." And it's Maul, the former Darth
Hmm.
Maul. And it's like I remember seeing that as a kid because I know Maul was alive in the comics that weren't that at the time. Maul was still alive in some of like the books and like the expanded materials and whatnot. But the fact that they
Hmm.
were actually going to do it in the show and actually make it canon, I thought that was really
Yeah.
cool. Um, okay,
Turns
and
out he
then
was a punk little Spider-Man.
well, all right. So season 4 is, I would say season 4 is probably like the best season because that's where they committed to having these 4-part story arcs, and every single one of them was a banger, absolute, like
Yeah.
incredible. Do you remember the Imbara arc where they're on like the purple planet, the clones, and it's the Jedi Krell, the guy with like 4 arms, and like he has the clones
Yeah,
going
the
up against the
crazy
aliens.
dude, the crazy
Yeah,
dude.
yeah, yeah.
That dude was crazy.
I mean, it turns out the twist is that he has the clones fighting, these aliens,
Going
but
up
it
the
turns out
clones.
you find out that the aliens are actually other clones, and that this Jedi, he's actually a dark Jedi, and he's like putting these clones against each other. And that
A
revelation when
psychopath.
Rex, which is the other like OC character they introduced, Commander Rex, when he finds out that the clones are, it's like the Soylent Green is people, but it's like you find out it's the aliens are
Hmm.
actually clones. Just the emotion in that scene, and just how the music kicks in, and he's like crying. They're all crying, and he's trying to like get the clones to like, hey, stop shooting each other. They're us.
What?
Everyone, stop firing! We're shooting at our own men! They're not Amarans! They're clones! Take off your helmets! Show them you're not the enemy! They're clones! Whoa, 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 whoa! Everyone, stop firing! Cease fire! They're not Amarans! They're clones! Look! We clones! We're all clones!
Incredible, awesome. Do you remember the
Yeah.
arc where Obi-Wan fakes his death, and so he could disguise himself as a bounty hunter? So he teams up with Cad Bane to go against the big bounty hunter. Um,
Man.
that was another great one because you have Cad Bane, and they actually develop him a little bit more too because like he learns to respect Obi-Wan. He doesn't know that it's Obi-Wan because he's disguised as this other bounty hunter. But you find out that Cad Bane actually has a code. So there's a point where Cad Bane is told to betray him, and he doesn't do it. He actually saves Obi-Wan, and so it's like, okay, I mean, he's a
Mm.
bad dude, but he has honor, and so like that was
You
cool.
got honor, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It shows how scary Anakin is because Anakin thinks that the bounty hunter that Obi-Wan is disguised as is the one that killed
Yeah,
Obi-Wan.
yeah,
So
they
you
killed
have
him. Mm-hmm.
so you have Anakin going after Obi-Wan in disguise and nearly killing him. So again, it shows like
Yeah.
how dangerous Anakin is when he taps into the dark side. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the season 4, it ended with Savage finally finding Maul, and you want to talk about how Maul ended up being the dumpster
Maul
of
was a little
Spider-Man?
itsy bitsy spider who went up the water spout, and he was so delusional. It was almost like if Michael Jordan got beat in the finals, and Michael Jordan said, "You know what? I don't ever want to play in the finals ever again, man. I ain't gonna never be no champion." He had this vibe. It was disgusting to me. I was like, ugh. I used to like you as a kid, and now you look, you whack. But Savage, he pulled him out of that rut, and he became the man that he was supposed to be. He got him some real legs, not no little spider legs.
Yeah,
Even his spider legs was a little wobbly. Like they weren't very grounded.
Yeah.
But he got some real feet, and he started getting down.
So what they were able to do with him, they had him voiced by Sam Witwer, who did you play the was it Force Unleashed, those games?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So
that
it
was
was
the
the
same
guy.
guy.
Yeah, it was the guy that played, Star Killer. Yeah. Which, I mean, those games ended up not being canon. So it was cool that they were able to bring him in to play Maul. And he's great. Like the performance that he gives as that character, like just the way he talks, he has such a it's like a sophistication to what he says, and yet you could tell he's unhinged too. Like you could tell that he's still out of his mind. Even when he gets his sanity back, you could tell there's like something is not quite right with this dude, and it makes him one of the more fascinating characters in the entire series. Well, moving on to season 5, which is okay. So season 5, not as good as season 4, but still pretty good. They introduce Saw Gerrera, who would go on to be played by Forrest Whitaker. Save the rebellion, save the dream. I think
the powers of the Black Panther shall now be stripped away.
The king, the purple shaped herb. Okay. I think that's the point. There's a point where Anakin's introduced to a young Tarkin before, of course, he's the Grand Moff, and so they play with Anakin saying like, "Hey, like I know like we're the Jedi, but like Tarkin, his methods and the way he sees things, it kind of makes sense. Like I kind of agree with some of the stuff he has to do." So you could kind of see them developing that relationship that will eventually evolve to Tarkin being, one of the few characters that Vader actually respects enough to take orders from. Before we get into the big, the best arc in season 5. Do you remember the droid arc with where R2D2 goes on his little adventure with other droids, and there's like the little general dude, the little mushroom dude, little frog guy? Do you remember?
I'm trying to. I think I had mixed feelings about that.
I mean, I don't have mixed feelings. That's absolutely the worst arc in the series. It was like 4 episodes. It was just the droids like hanging around. It is terrible.
And it was like nothing. It was really nothing happening.
It was horrible. There was an episode where they got lost in the desert for the entire 20 minutes. They're just walking in the desert. It's just, why did you guys do this? Why? Like they had the nerve to make it 4 episodes too, where absolutely nothing is going.
Nobody don't care about them droids.
But fortunately, they followed it up with the best arc, the one where with Darth Maul, and Savage, where, like you said, they take over Death Watch. And do you want to talk about that?
Man, woo. Well, I want to talk about how he was wielding that black lightsaber.
Yeah, the dark saber.
I love me some black. And when I saw that, it kind of reminded me of a katana, though.
Yeah.
Reminded me of a katana instead of the traditional saber we see that's a little cylindrical type of shape. I do like the fact that Darth Maul became, Maul. He took his power back.
Mm-hmm.
He went from being a punk little wiener to a big man. He became big man Maul. You know what I'm saying? He had his brother to his side. But I think there's a point where his brother lost his saber and he just had this spear.
I remember there's a point where they realized, like, they remembered that they have spikes on their heads, and there was a point where Savage just he like rams one of the Jedi, like the black lady, in the head and like in the stomach, and kills her that way. Which, I mean, that works too. I suppose.
I remember that one.
It's kind of
Uh,
funny because like the way the show does works with like continuity, like not every
mhm.
episode is released chronologically. So like that episode where Savage kills the black lady, she shows up again in the next episode in the background just chilling because just the way the episodes aired, they aired out of order, which is kind of weird.
Mhm.
But my favorite fight is actually when Maul was fighting the leader of Death Watch, Pre Vizsla,
Oh
the
yeah, the
guy that
guy.
was wielding the dark saber. That fight was incredible because it was just like it showed
Yeah,
how powerful Maul is with the Force.
right on the
And
throne, right? They was in the throne room, right?
yeah. It was just their
Hmm.
little back because that's how it works in the Mandalorian culture. In order to be the leader of the Watch, the Death Watch, you have to win the sword in battle. And so they had their little duel. It was a great duel. Like it was awesome. Um, anyway, continue.
My favorite was Darth Maul Savage versus Palpatine.
Mm,
Like because for me, I remember watching that episode, and it just caught me by surprise.
yeah.
And I was just saying to myself, what's gonna happen here? And you know, Palpatine does this pose where the lightsabers, come right out of his sleeve, and he holds them.
Yeah.
I think he had two. He had two
Yeah, he
sabers.
had to.
He
It's
had two sabers.
do you know why they gave him two?
Why they give him two?
It's to fix the plot hole. In remember in episode 3 where he's fighting Mace Windu, and when they're fighting by the window, he loses his lightsaber and it flies out the window. And then later,
Oh,
when he's
okay.
fighting Yoda, he's all of a sudden has another lightsaber back. And so basically,
Mm,
they gave him two in Clone Wars to explain how he has two somehow in episode 3. Uh,
okay.
so,
Mm, all
uh,
right.
but yeah,
But I was thinking, like, I wasn't expecting none of that from the fight. It really had me on the edge of my seat.
yeah.
They was fighting, and for me, it was definitely a one-sided fight, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
Palpatine was just playing around,
yeah,
and he was smiling, laughing, and
yeah.
for some odd reason, they never show you his face, even though you know who he
You
is.
know who he is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's a point where he like punches, if I'm not mistaken, he punches or he hits uh Darth Maul, and then he laughs and he twirls the both the sabers back, and he
Yeah.
dashes back and just goes straight through Savage.
Yeah.
Like I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then he starts shriveling out like a toothpaste, and just dies on the floor, turns skinny.
Yeah. And it shows
That
again, like Maul's character, like he actually genuinely cares about his brother because he actually stops
yeah,
fighting Palpatine for a second to,
yeah,
mourn, his brother. Um,
begging, and then he shocks him,
well,
torments him.
before that, Maul tries to get revenge, and so because he's wielding the dark saber, but then he grabs Savage's saber, so he's dual wielding, the red saber and the dark saber fighting, trying his best to get back at Palpatine. It doesn't work, but and then like you said, like Palpatine of course gets the upper hand and shocks him. Did you notice Palpatine, he shocks Maul so bad that Palpatine's voice actor changes and he turns into Tim Curry.
The first and only reality of the Sith. There can only be two, and you are no longer my apprentice. You have been replaced. There is no mercy.
Do not worry. I'm not going to kill you. I have other uses for you.
At the end. So like in real life, the voice actor for Palpatine died. And so they brought in Tim Curry to voice him again, to voice the character from that point on. And so at the end of the episode, like he shocks Maul, and then his voice just automatically just changes, and it's Tim Curry's voice, and it's so weird.
Really?
It's so like such a.
I'm gonna have to go back. He turned back into Spider-Man Maul, begging like a little puny.
Yeah. So that was, I remember seeing that on Cartoon Network, that episode when that I was just blown away. I was like, man,
Yeah,
this is the best
same.
show I've ever seen in my life. Like, and it felt earned because it's the fifth season, all these years of watching, the show in bite-sized chunks, just, half an hour at a time. And finally to get
Hmm.
to this point, this epic moment. Um, the arc after that, the final arc of the season, which ended up being for a while the series finale because the show got canceled when Disney bought Lucasfilm, was the arc
Yeah,
where Ahsoka, Anakin's Padawan, she gets framed for a murder, and the
yeah,
Jedi,
uh-huh,
they're about to kill her, like because she goes
yeah.
on the run because she's like, I have to prove my innocence, and the Jedi, they capture her,
Hmm.
they put her on trial.
And
Uh,
she started working with Ventress too, huh?
Yeah, because Ventress, she was dogged out by Dooku, because Dooku was realizing that Ventress was becoming too powerful, and so well, and then Dooku tried to kill her. So like it was kind of like that bonding moment between these two, Padawans. Um, but like the way it ended, where they finally realized who the real bad guy was, it was another dark Jedi. But Ahsoka says, "Hey, I can't like go back to you guys. Like you guys are about to kill me for
Yeah,
something I didn't
you
do.
guys had a.
You didn't listen to me.
Hmm.
Like I can't be a Jedi anymore." And so she leaves. And the fact that at the time that was the end of the series, it's super tragic because it's like, man, like that's not a happy ending. Like that's really, you're gonna leave
Hmm.
us like that.
Yeah.
Um, so after that, the show got canceled, but there were a few episodes that were in production, and so Netflix came in and said, "Hey, you guys can finish these handful of episodes, and we'll air them." I think they were called like the Lost episodes or something, and they aired that final season at the time, final season on Netflix. So, how do you feel about season six?
Hey, refresh my memory. I'm gonna let you take the word because I'm trying to remember. Because I
um,
know I remember watching it, but I'm trying to remember what was going on.
At the time, I remember being pretty underwhelmed by the episodes, but rewatching it again recently, they're all pretty solid. The first arc is really probably the best one. It has to do with the clone Fives, who was one of the original clones that we were introduced to back in the first episode with rookies with Yoda. Fives. He discovers the plan that the aliens on Camino have by putting the chip in all the
Oh
clones'
yeah,
heads.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
So when
And then
Order
one of them
66,
started freaking out, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay, I remember that one.
he uncovers this conspiracy saying like, hey, there's something going on with these clones. And if you don't do something about it, like something's bad is gonna happen. He's talking about Order
Hmm.
66. And that episode is so tragic because no one believes him, and he comes so
Hmm.
close to blowing the whistle on this. Uh, but no, they get him. Like the Camino, the aliens on Camino, they end up killing him. They like poison
Yeah.
him, and he dies
Hmm.
before he's able to tell Rex what's going on. And it's so tragic because it's one of those clones that you've been following for like 5 seasons at this point, and just to see him on a mission to save the day, and
Die.
he's not able to do it. It's like, man. Um, Also, there's an arc where it's another arc that's like a political arc with a Padme, where it's dealing with her on a Coruscant and her like politician buddies, but it's actually really well done. And basically, she gets reunited with an old flame of hers, and Anakin gets jealous. And it's just kind of like that soap opera thing where Anakin's like, "Hey, you were talking to that guy, it's kind of sus, like it's kind of." So it's a political episode, but like our political arc, but it's actually really well done. Like the writing is actually really good. There's not a whole lot of action, but the writing is actually done well enough where you're still invested in what was going on. There's a really cool fight scene, not a fight scene, but a chase scene with you remember the bounty hunter Embo? He's the guy with the big hat, the hat. It looks like a Captain America shield that he like throws
And
in
he
like
covered. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
there's a chase scene where he's chasing them down a mountain and he's like riding his hat like it's a
Yeah, riding the
sled.
hat.
Um,
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, there's an arc where Mace Windu uh, and Jar Jar are teamed up, and they go on this buddy cop adventure. And at this point, like the writers know why Jar Jar is problematic, but they kind of lean into it. So I think the Clone Wars in general does a good job with Jar Jar, just leaning into him being a buffoon. And it's actually a lot of fun. Like it's like I said, it's like a buddy cop adventure between them. And then you get the final arc, which is Yoda. It's all him. It's just 3 episodes of him going on
Yeah,
an
I
adventure,
remember that one.
and it's
Hmm.
really cool because
He goes to that place, right? That Sith place, huh?
it's because he's contacted by Qui-Gon, the Force ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn. It's actually Liam Neeson. They actually got Liam Neeson back to do the voice.
Yeah.
And at that point in the story, in the chronologically, the Jedi, they'd never heard of Force ghosts before. Like Yoda's trying to tell them like, hey, I heard this guy's voice, and they're telling him like, you're crazy. Like they can't do that. Like there's no such thing
Hmm.
as Force ghosts. And so Yoda's trying to figure out what's going on. And this is the point where like he's in a tank and he's trying to force project himself to find where that voice is coming from. And when he's doing it, it almost kills him. And like Qui-Gon says, "No, Yoda, this isn't the way. You can't force project like this." And again, this is
Hmm.
where they are showing if you do a force projection and you overdo it, you could kill yourself. So fast forward to The Last Jedi, where Luke does it, where he force projects. He ends up killing himself because you're not supposed to do that. It's too
Vanishes.
dangerous. So like again, it doesn't like it's not out of nowhere. Like that's canonically something that the precedent was set. But basically, Yoda goes on this adventure to discover what's going on with this Force Ghost stuff. Like, how are they able to do this? And what I love about it is that they actually give Yoda like a story arc too, a character arc too, because he
Hmm.
confronts. Like they tell him he goes to this planet, and they tell him he's gonna have to face his own dark side. And Yoda, he's kind of egotistical. He's like, he's like, I can't, I've already conquered my dark side. Like I've already, dealt within, like I know what I'm about. Like I don't have anything to overcome. And they say, no, that's what it is. It's your ego. It's your hubris. That's your undoing. And so basically Yoda has to come to terms with, his own, hubris and saying like, hey, I don't know everything,
Hmm.
which I think is really cool. So to actually have like, at that time, the end of the series be another Yoda story, it just felt like pure Star Wars. Um, the only thing about it, it does end with Yoda fighting projection of. He has a vision of Darth Sidious, and they end up fighting. And the fight is built around Yoda figuring out who he is, but we know he's not going to figure it out until Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So
Hmm.
that fight is kind of empty. It kind of felt like just it's like almost fan service. Like we want to see these characters fight. But I mean,
Hmm.
that's the only thing. Like it's still it was a good. If that was the end of the series, it was a pretty decent way to end the series. Um, After that, the show ended. There were other shows that came out, and then they brought in Disney Plus. Finally released the final season, the actual, legitimately the end of the Clone Wars. And what did you think of that season overall?
Tell me, refresh my memory, because I want to know
uh,
if I saw this one or not.
Wait, you didn't see, did you finish the show, like the series?
I'm trying to remember. Because
Okay.
look, it's a lot of seasons, and I remember. I don't know if it was Disney Plus. It might have been Disney Plus, but there was a moment where they were releasing more episodes, and I was
uh,
watching them.
yeah.
Tell me, how many did they release?
12, because it was three 4-part
Okay,
arcs. So
okay, all right.
the thing about when Disney brought it back, the animation was gorgeous. Like it looked incredible. Like Disney actually put their money into it. Because the thing with the original show, George Lucas was putting his own money into the Clone Wars show, which is why, for a TV show on Cartoon Network, it looked incredible. Like it looked, way leagues above anything else on the channel at the time. Um,
Mhm.
so Disney was actually putting money into this final season to make it look as good as it possibly could, and you could just tell. And they updated the designs to make them look, a lot similar to how they did in the movie in Episode 3. Um, the first arc, it was basically a backdoor pilot for the Bad Batch TV
Okay,
show.
yeah, I remember watching those.
Yeah. It was fun. It was just introducing this group of clones who are they're basically like mutants because they all have like different defects to give them like
Yeah, they're
special
freaks.
abilities.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Um, yeah. What'd you think of those episodes?
Well, okay. So now that you're speaking, I think I've only watched those that first arc.
Mm.
So I don't know what the other few are, but I
Wow.
remember watching those few.
Mm.
I thought, if I'm being honest, I thought that was the end. I didn't know they was releasing
Hmm.
more episodes because I remember them releasing it, and I was excited. I was like, "Let's go!"
Mhm.
And I remember watching those, and I just remember maybe I was just caught up in school or what
Mhm.
was it? And that was just the end. I considered that was the end. I didn't know there was more.
Oh man, you are in for a treat. Absolutely.
Okay, all
Well,
right.
those 4 episodes, they were fun, but it kind of got repetitive because it was just the clones and Anakin just like fighting a bunch of droids, and it was kind of like just 4 episodes of that. And it was fine, but it was just like, okay, let's get on to what we're here to see. The next
Hmm.
4 episodes, it dealt with Ahsoka and what she was going through since leaving the Jedi, and I was kind of getting
Did she
nervous.
encounter Vader in this?
No, no, that's the next
Oh,
show.
okay,
That's the next show.
all right.
Um, this one, she's on the lower levels of the Coruscant, I believe, and she is introduced to these other 2 characters, these 2 Latina characters, which is, I think, I want to say, is the first for Star Wars. Can you think of any other? I know Jimmy Smits. They have Jimmy Smits, but can you think of any other Latino
Oscar
Star
Isaac.
Wars? Oscar Isaac. Yeah, that's true. Um, but yeah, people were mad because this was an episode where there were animatics. They were working on it before the show got canceled originally. And originally these characters were 2 dudes. And so people
Mm,
were like, Disney, why are you remaking them and making them women? Like it's like, but
who
it's like
cares? Shut
that
up.
doesn't it's like that no, like
Bunch of losers
yeah, like
hating.
I mean, it's great. Like we need more, again, more representation, like more female characters, more Latina characters in Star Wars. Like,
Exactly.
because I mean, we barely have any black characters in Star Wars, so like might as well. Um, so those episodes are kind of yes, 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 yes. Like there's literally an episode
Yes,
where they
yes.
there's an episode where they get captured, and so they start off in prison, they escape, and then by the end of the episode, they end up back in prison. So it's like, what was the point of that? Like you literally like ended off right where you started. So like we didn't have
Hmm.
to do that. But basically, the point of it was to get Ahsoka to find out what's going on and figure out why what's going on with Darth Maul, because she realizes Maul is doing some shady stuff on
Hmm.
Mandalore, and so it's basically to get Ahsoka back in the game, and that's what leads into the final arc of the Clone Wars, Siege of Mandalore. And dude, let me tell you, are you still there? You froze.
Yeah. No, oh, I'm
Okay.
here.
Let me tell you, Siege of Mandalore, 4 episodes. This is absolutely the best Star Wars period after Empire Strikes Back. Like this is absolutely top tier Star Wars. Like out of all the movies, except for Empire, but all the movies, all the TV shows, the video games. I haven't read the comics, so maybe those have it, but Siege of Mandalore, 4 episodes, half an hour each. It's basically a 2 hour movie. Absolutely incredible.
And
It's
Maul is in there.
Yes. Okay. So Siege of Mandalore, like the way it opens, man. Like you know how Clone Wars usually opens, where you see the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and they show the title
Hmm.
sequence, and then they have the admiral come on saying like he sounds like a World War II
He's like,
announcer, radio
Planet
announcer.
Tatooine.
Yeah.
Well, enemies fighting. I can't even do
Yeah, he's
it.
like evil in the galaxy. Will our hero
Evil
survive?
is afoot.
It's like General Kenobi is the only hope. But they don't do that. They take it seriously. Like they open, you hear the choir come in. Like it's how like the Harry Potter movies, like it's usually they start off where you see the Warner Brothers logo. It usually starts off
Hmm.
happy, and as the movies progressed and got darker, the music started getting more ominous with each
Yeah,
movie. Where and by the end, it's just like
and it's
not even a
that.
happy music. It's just dark and the Warner Brothers symbols like coming together.
Yeah.
Um, it's like that, where it's like, you know, Lucasfilm proudly presents the end of the Clone Wars, and the
Mm.
music's like, oh, it's just like you could tell, like it's cinematic, and it opens with this incredible battle at the beginning, and they finally have Ahsoka come back. She's reunited with Rex and the clones, and just from the get go, like she's reunited with Anakin and Obi-Wan, and you could absolutely feel like I don't know what it is, but like with the music and the acting and everything, you could feel like man, this is Star Wars, man. Like it just feels right. And so the first episode, they're telling her like, hey, like Maul is doing something on Mandalore. Like you got to get in there. You got to like figure out what's going on. And so Ahsoka, there's this great action scene where she's like flying down to the planet and she's dual wielding her lightsabers. And there's this big war going on Mandalore. And the second episode is where she's finally confronts Maul. And this is their first time meeting one another. And man, it's like one of the best scenes in Star Wars like ever, where like she's the throne room, the throne room where
Yeah,
Duchess Satine was at. Maul's sitting on the throne, and before they fight, like he's talking to Ahsoka. He captured one of the clones, and he like did the Sith, trick where he takes their memories. So
the mind trick.
basically, yeah. So basically, he gets caught up on all the previous seasons of Clone Wars, so he knows who Ahsoka is. And so basically, he has a conversation with her, explaining, trying to appeal to who she is, and basically explaining what he's trying to do. And basically, what he's doing is he knows that Palpatine is grooming Anakin to become like a powerful Sith Lord. And he knows that if Palpatine succeeds and Anakin becomes Darth Vader, that's it for the galaxy. Like that's just it. So
I
what?
think as you continue to speak, I think I might have seen this. It sounds familiar because I remember Darth Maul sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
Ahsoka. Maybe I only watched it once because I watched Clone Wars the episodes repeatedly,
Yeah.
so I know them very well. But yeah, continue.
Maul's basically saying like, okay, so I orchestrated this war on Mandalore so I can, bait Anakin to come here so I could kill him, and so I could kill Palpatine's, his pet project. And the thing is, like Maul is absolutely right. Like if he was able to do that and actually succeed, like he would save the universe, like the galaxy. There'll be no Vader. Palpatine wouldn't have a apprentice, and like that's it. Well, I don't think Maul would have succeeded. Like I don't think Maul would have
Mm,
been able to kill Anakin. But it's just the idea that was his plan. Like he was this close to, changing the course of history, Star Wars history. I thought it was so interesting. And then just the fact, but the thing is, like, you have these two characters that have, Ahsoka, she's an OC, and then you have Maul, who's not an OC, not an original character, but still the Clone Wars was able to breathe so much life into him. So you have these two characters confronting one another, and they're both so well realized. They're so three-dimensional. You know exactly what both of their motivations are. You know exactly where they're coming from. So the fact that when they do fight, you feel it. You're like, okay, I'm behind this. I'm excited because I know what these guys are about. And just as a writer, that is so, I don't know, inspiring to me. Like, or at least in a sense of when you have character conflicts in a story that you're writing, that's top tier. That's how you want to do it. You want to make it between two characters that the audience cares about. So they have a great fight, and the fight's actually motion captured. So they actually brought Ray Park back to motion capture Maul. So
really?
and they brought someone in to motion capture Ahsoka. So the fight, you watch it, it's not like the typical Clone Wars fight where they're doing all this crazy stuff. It's more grounded, but it's still super impressive, just the choreography and everything, and the way it's shot and everything. It's absolutely incredible. Um, then the next episode, they do the Order 66, where you actually hear the audio from Revenge of the Sith. So you actually hear Samuel L.
Hmm.
Jackson. You hear Samuel L. Jackson saying, "Don't do it, Anakin," and you hear Hayden Christensen. And since you're on this ship with all these clones, you actually see them go rogue, and it's
Berserk,
heartbreaking
yeah.
because you know who these guys are. You know who Rex is, and Rex is kind of finding like, wait a minute, this is what Fives was trying to warn me about. Like he was trying to tell me, like, hey, there's something going on in our heads that's gonna make us go crazy. Um, and so like it's emotional because these are the soldiers that Ahsoka was fighting alongside for all these seasons and whatnot, and seeing them go against her, it's impactful. It's emotionally impactful. Um, Eventually, she's able to get Rex do the surgery to get the chip out of his head, or at least
Yeah.
disable it.
Okay.
Uh,
I think I've seen this, but
yeah,
I can't. It's like deep in my subconscious, like buried, because I remember that.
I mean, you could tell like I how much I love it because like it's right there. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. The final episode is, you talk about like tragedy in like Star Wars. The end of the Clone Wars is literally they're on this ship that's like on a crash course into a moon. I think it's a moon. So like everybody on that ship is gonna die. And so you have Ahsoka, you have Rex, and you have Maul just doing whatever they can to get out of Dodge and escape. But it's tragic because they're going up against these clones who are brainwashed, these soldiers, and Rex is crying, saying like these guys, like all they know is like being good soldiers. They're just following orders. And like now I have to kill these guys, like my brothers.
Yeah.
It's so intense. And the fact that even though we know that all three of these characters live on to be in future projects, you're still on the edge of your seat because you love these guys so much. So like there's a couple moments where I'm like, are they gonna kill Ahsoka? Even though I know she shows up later. But like there's a couple moments where I get that gut reaction, like, oh my God, they're about to kill her. And then they give Maul like a couple like really cool moments where he like takes the door and he like decapitates like a couple clones with the door, and he like pulls down like a generator like with his using the Force. So that finale, like, it's just incredibly is the definition of epic. That whole action scene at the end where the ship is falling and they're trying to get onto the escape ship to I think it's like an X-wing that they're trying to get on to escape. And then just like the final scene where you see Ahsoka at these basically the grave site of these clones, and she puts the helmets on the pikes. It's just impactful, man. Like it's just like, and then they flash forward to Vader, years later, because you see they're not clone troopers anymore, they're stormtroopers, and you see Vader pick up Ahsoka's lightsaber. And in his mind, he thinks that Ahsoka's dead, like she died in that crash. And that's like the last bit of Anakin's humanity that you see in Vader, because it's like you could see, I mean, he's wearing the helmet, so you can't see his face, but just the body language, you could tell what's going on in his head. So it's just tragic, and that's the end. Like that's it. That's the end of the Clone Wars. That's like, it's a somber ending, dude. Like it's just, but it's
those
earned.
are the best endings in my opinion.
It's completely earned, and that is just top tier Star Wars for me. It was better. It was a better movie than Episode 9. Like as soon as I watched it, I couldn't wait to watch that whole the 4 episodes again. So watch it again. Like you'll it's absolutely worth it. So I mean, overall, Clone Wars, I love this show. Like we barely scratched the surface. There's so much goodness in that series. 7 seasons of incredible television, animation or otherwise. So, I mean, anything else you wanted to say before we move on?
Palpatine versus Darth Maul. That fight scene always gets me, man. I remember watching that thing over and over and over again, like dissecting it, like his moves and how cool he was. But definitely, I think it's slept on. They need to. It'd be nice if they put it back on TV for the little kids.
I mean, they could watch it on Disney Plus. So
right.
They're Dooku, Count Dooku. He had like a few good fights with Anakin also, which is they did a good job with that. The lightsaber battles in general. There's a point where Ahsoka, she gets captured by the Death Watch, and she's like tied up. But then all of a sudden the droids, they give her lightsabers back, and she does this move where she like spins in the air and she like does a quadruple decapitation on all the Death Watch that are like surrounding her. That is so cool. So I love the show. It's my Star Wars. Like that's mine. Like some people they have the prequels, and some people they have the original trilogy, but Clone Wars,
it was great,
like mine.
Man.
Like that's just so. All right. So anyway, let's move on to the next show. We've been talking a whole hour on Clone Wars. So we'll probably spend a little less time on these next few shows. So let's move on to Star Wars Rebels.
I have to see this through to the end. Everything I've done and will do began with you. But it's not over. Not until we chase the Empire from Lothal and show the galaxy that for all their power, They can be defeated.
We're ready. Let's finish this!
On my command, fire!
Your little rebellion ends now.
Destroy him.
We don't want to disappoint our Emperor.
I think we're out of time.
There's too many!
Get out of there right now.
You don't deserve Lothal.
What matters is who has power.
The Force will be with you. Always.
All right, Star Wars Rebels. So Disney, over the course of Star Wars, the initial run of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Disney bought LucasArts, and it caused this huge shakeup, which unfortunately resulted in Clone Wars ending for the first time, one of 3 times, but it ended its run on Cartoon Network. And Disney, they wanted to bring everything in-house. Before the movies came out, they started production on their own series, which was essentially a prequel, not a prequel, well, yes, a prequel to the original trilogy, but more also a sequel series of sorts to the Clone Wars. It takes place in between episodes 3 and episodes 4 of the movies, and that is Star Wars Rebels, which initially aired on Disney XD. Now, Dameon, you've seen this show, right? How about you take the wheel on this one, Star Wars Rebels?
I'm gonna take the wheel with I'm gonna take the wheel, as you said. Star Wars Rebels, I enjoyed it. One thing I didn't enjoy was the art style. Like, I didn't like how the lightsabers looked like toothpicks. That bothered me.
That's
a
so
lot.
true.
It was so thin.
That's so
I'm
true.
Like, what bonehead had the idea of make the sabers thin like this? Like, it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I just think to myself, like, who said, yeah, that's okay to do?
Yeah. Well,
why couldn't you just make a regular saber?
Well, to touch on the art style, that was one of the things that turned people off when the show got revealed, because Clone Wars, George Lucas was pumping his own money into each episode, which is why that show looks so incredible, especially the later seasons. You look to see how look at an episode of Rebels and then look at an episode of Clone Wars that aired on Cartoon Network, and you could clearly see the
Clone Wars feels real.
It is so incredible looking and again, it was on Cartoon Network. It was on network television, and seeing how good that looks. And then clearly, Rebels, it's a fraction of the budget, even though it's Disney. But it was on Disney XD. Characters,
they got Disney-fied.
It did. The characters, they look a lot more simplified. Even the characters soft. Soft. I know a reason why they didn't have Wookiees in the first couple seasons of Clone Wars was because they didn't want to have to animate the fur. And eventually they put Chewbacca and some other Wookiees on Clone Wars for a couple episodes. But for Rebels, you could see why they chose not to do Wookiees, because the Wookiees on Rebels, they look like Legos. They look like the Lego Wookiees. Like, what were they thinking?
I shag a Lego.
It is weird. So yeah, anyway, that's the thing with the art style. But anyway, continue.
I was gonna say, I kept watching every week. I was keeping up with the episodes. Because I just very much enjoy Star Wars. I think the defining moments, the best moments of that series was when the main dude, the character Freddie Prinze Jr. plays as.
Kanan?
Kanan, when he loses his eyesight.
Yeah.
And when Ahsoka fights Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Those were the dope moments of that series that are very memorable.
Yeah.
But if we switch over to Clone Wars got dozens and dozens of memorable moments, bro.
Yeah.
At least that's from my perspective.
No, I agree. I gotta admit, when Rebels first started airing, I started watching it. I didn't like it, really. I couldn't really get into it. I tried. I watched, week for week, but you can notice how little you care about a show when the episodes start piling up on your DVR, where you're not compelled to
There,
like,
yeah.
hey, the shows came out, I got to hurry up and watch it. Sometimes when you forget about it, you're like,
Yep,
yeah, I guess I'll watch it eventually, I suppose.
I've been through
Um,
that.
yeah, well, basically, what the show is, it's a ragtag group of characters that come together that form, essentially they're I don't know what you're going to call it, but it's like a ragtag group of characters that come together and influence the Rebel Alliance as far as starting the revolution that goes up against the Empire, leading into Episode 4, A New Hope. The main character, his name's Ezra, and he's basically Aladdin. He's Space Aladdin, like he's a quote unquote street rat running around,
Space
stealing.
Aladdin.
I mean, he's straight up. That's straight up what he is. But Ezra, he's force sensitive, and he comes under the tutelage of Kanan, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character, who is a Jedi, who, of course, because of Order 66, all the Jedi are in hiding, and so they end up together where he's trying to reluctantly training Ezra to be a Jedi and use those toothpick lightsabers. The characters, you got the droid, you got I think her name's Hira Syndulla, the
Yeah,
pilot.
something like that.
You got I mean, you could tell how much I care about this show. I can't remember these characters' names. There's
Like
the
I
guy.
said, very unrememberable.
Uh,
Unrememberable, is that correct?
Sure. The thing about this show is that it's not bad. Like it is definitely, but it's definitely what people were afraid of when it came to Disney taking the property, because you have Clone Wars, which is such a well-written show. The thing is, Rebels is the same guy. It's Dave Filoni, the same creator. But the thing is, the mindset is
Filoni.
the the mindset behind the show is a little different. Whereas, like, I would say Clone Wars is like you could see it as an adult show that kids could watch. Rebels is a kid show that adults can watch. So, like, it's not speaking down to kids, or it's not strictly, you can watch it. It's meant for Star Wars fans because there's a lot of deep cut references and everything. And the writing, it's mature to the point where like characters die and stuff happens and whatnot. But it is written from the angle of a very Disney mindset, which means it's not as hard hitting as Clone Wars was, and as a result, it's not as memorable. At least for me, I think it's not as memorable. Um, I will
I believe
say.
there.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I will say that after I rewatched Clone Wars on Disney Plus, I decided to give Rebels another shot. So I started again, and I did like it a lot more the second time. At least the first season, I liked it a lot more. The episodes that I kind of that I initially watched when the show first came up, I enjoyed them a lot better, and I actually did get into the characters and what was going on. But the thing is, the most memorable stuff on the show were the things that tied into the greater Star Wars universe, including the dangling threads from Clone Wars. So they bring in Darth Maul again. And his episode again, it's just like the writers woke up finally when he shows up, because he's written just as well as he was written in Clone Wars up to that point. He still has the same kind of weird monologues and his mindset and everything, where he's not a Sith, but he's not a good guy. Obviously, he's still in this weird nebulous space, and it's fascinating what they do with him. And then, like you said, they bring back Ahsoka. She's a lot older. They bring in Vader, and they bring back James Earl Jones, who does obviously a great job. And all that's great. That's like the hype. That's like the best parts of the series, is when it's dealing with stuff from a much better series. That episode where Ahsoka and Vader face off, it's like it's such fan service, because that's Ahsoka dealing with her master again, because you've seen their relationship develop over the course of Clone Wars, and it's your first time seeing them face to face since then, which is great. So it's emotional and everything, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Ezra or any of the other characters from Rebels. So I mean, I don't know what that says about the show. Did you finish the series?
I believe so. It's been a long while.
Do you remember how it ends? Because I'll admit,
I think wasn't that the ending? Ahsoka and Vader
No, no,
shoot.
that was not the. It might as well have been because after that, seasons 3 and 4. Well, season 3 they introduce a popular character from some of the books and
Mhm.
some of the comics from the
Which is
expanded universe. Grand Admiral Thrawn, who he looks like Squidward. He looks like handsome Squidward. He's a. I think the race is. I think they're called Chiss. I think they're like blue and they have like red eyes.
his name is Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yeah, Thrawn, and he's a master tactician. He's interesting
According
because
to Star Wars databank,
uh,
of Lothal wanted a stronger commander to dismantle the.
That was my
um,
phone. I looked him up. I think I did watch that episode, but like I said, very not memorable. Um, yeah, continue. My bad.
well, I'll say that character people were looking forward to bringing that because all the expanded universe stuff was not canceled, but Disney made those things non-canon. They said all that stuff isn't canon. So people were
Mm,
looking forward to them bringing that character into canon. And I would say, like, as far as that's concerned, he was probably the best part of the later seasons for me because he's a great
mhm.
villain. Like, he's a tactician. He's interesting because he's part of the Empire, and the Empire are for basically, I mean, a bunch of racists. Like, they're mostly
And what
like,
was he doing? I'm trying to remember this guy. Was he?
well, the thing is that like he's like an underdog because most of the Empire they're mostly humans, because they don't like having like aliens on their team. But he is so good that he built up his position to be able to actually work with the Empire and be one of their best figures, personnel or whatever. So he's dealing with racism and at the same time as him dealing with what he's trying to do for the empire and whatnot. But anyway, he's an interesting character. He's a tactician. He's the one that's trying to find these rebels and like smoke them out. Um, you know,
Okay.
crush the rebellion before it gets going and all that, whatnot. Admittedly, most of what I know about him, I didn't read. I listened to the audiobook of the I think it's just called Thrawn that Timothy Zahn put out around the time that this character showed up on Rebels, and that book goes more into his backstory and his mindset and him climbing the ranks of the Empire to get to the point where he is. Like at the end of that book, he ends up meeting Vader, and there's like a mutual respect for each other because of how the roles that they both play and how good they both are. So I'm kind of
Mm,
bringing that baggage into how I see him in Rebels. um,
okay.
but that said, I admittedly I didn't finish the show, I'll say, because
Mm,
I couldn't.
mm,
The thing is, there's a great episode where they continue Darth Maul's story arc where he's going after Kenobi because at a point he's kind of lost he's no longer a Sith. So he kind of feels kind of aimless in his journey. So all he has left is Obi-Wan because like that's it. Like he has nothing else to do. And so do you remember that episode where he goes to Tatooine and he confronts Ben? Uh, Ben Kenobi and Obi Wan. He looks like Alec Guinness, and they have that final lightsaber duel. Do you
And he
remember that?
loses, huh?
He died like that. That fight lasts all of like 10 seconds because Obi Wan he does the samurai thing where it's so quick you don't even see like I mean if you slow it down you can see it but like at first glance it's hard to see the killing blow but it's like all of a sudden Maul's lightsaber is cut in half and then like clearly he was struck and he like dies in Obi-Wan's
Mm.
hands. Do you remember that? Do you
I'm trying to. I'm digging in my banks. Like I
uh
said, bro, like I enjoy watching it, but like I said, I can pull Clone Wars out the hat,
uh
and that's even older than Rebels.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
No, I understand. I
But
understand.
I'm trying. I do remember Admiral Thrawn though.
uh
I think I finished it. It's just I can't remember
mm.
finishing it.
Well,
I'm like 90% sure I finished it. It's not memorable.
I'll say the thing with Maul, just because that wraps up a storyline that they brought that character back in Clone Wars, so I was interested in seeing what they end up doing with him. That's great for him. It's great for the character of Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan, he's a master. Well, he's been a master, but he's been protecting Luke on Tatooine, and it's almost as if they're not even gonna fight when they meet. But then Maul figures that Obi-Wan's protecting someone, and we know that he's protecting Luke. And Maul threatens Luke, and Obi-Wan's like, okay, I do have to take you out because I have to protect that boy. And they have that fight. And when they lose, or when Maul loses, he's almost I don't say relieved, but it's like, his journey's done finally. He doesn't have to keep pretending, that like he doesn't have anything to live for. So now his journey's done. And he says that boy will avenge us. And it's kind of a really interesting moment.
Okay. I think yeah. Okay, I remember watching this. Yeah.
That's great. That's probably the best part of the series. And as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of when I lost interest, because it's like, that's done. Like, that storyline is done. Like, I don't really care about these other characters like Ezra. And I like Kanan, but I think he dies at a certain point. I don't remember. And it's just like that. It didn't do anything for me.
Them toothpick sabers did not help the show at all. I'm so serious, man. Every time they whipped the saber, I was like, put that up. I love seeing lightsabers, but every time they whip that thing out, I was like, put that up. I don't want to see that.
Well, I guess the only other thing is they brought back Saw Gerrera, and this time they actually made him look like Forrest Whitaker. And they got Forrest Whitaker to voice him.
I remember that.
Save the rebellion, save the dream. And I gotta say, man, Forrest Whitaker, he's obviously a great actor. Like he has an Oscar, doesn't he? For was it Last King of Scotland? I think so.
I don't even know.
But the episodes he's in, he delivers an incredible performance.
Business.
Like it's way above the level of acting that is typical for that show.
Members of the Alliance to restore the Republic.
Saw.
Your losses today stem from your leaders' cowardice, their unwillingness to take decisive action against the Empire. All across the galaxy, your people suffer while the leaders of this rebellion refuse to act.
You target civilians, kill those who surrender, break every rule of engagement. If we degrade ourselves to the Empire's level, what will we become?
There she is! That's the leader the rebellion needs! Where is that fire, that passion, when your people need it most? I hope, Senator, after you've lost, and the Empire reigns over the galaxy, unopposed, you will find some comfort in the knowledge that you fought according to the rules.
That's enough.
Like he has an argument, like a intellectual debate with some people in an episode, and he's just like he's putting it down. Like Forrest Whitaker, like he gives his all in everything, even for like a little Disney show. Like he gives his all so much. Have you played Jedi Fallen Order?
I have not played that one.
He shows up in that game, and he's a minor character. He's in one level, but it's him. Like he does the motion capture, he does the voice and everything. It's Forrest Whitaker, and he only gets like maybe 20 minutes of screen time, but he's that dedicated to that, to his craft, that they were able to get him to do that, which is cool. But yeah, Rebels.
Solid.
It's a show. Like it's not as good as Clone Wars, so but hey, it's something. So you want to move on?
Move on.
All right, let's move on to the live action stuff. Oh, before we do, there's another show. I think it's called Star Wars Resistance.
Can you imagine what it's like to be an ace pilot? This is your chance to make that true.
I've got a mission for you.
Yes!
Blend in, find out who's loyal to the good guys and who isn't.
What was that?
What was what?
The throwing and the falling. Over there.
Don't think about it.
You can work on my team,
Get ready to be impressed.
but when it comes to your mission as a spy, I don't want anything to do with it.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I just wanted to wish my competition good luck.
This is fine. I'm fine.
Just be careful and don't explode.
I'll do my best.
This should be good.
Here we go.
Star Wars Resistance in all new series premieres Sunday, October 7th at 10 on Disney Channel.
Yes!
Which is also Dave Filoni. It's a CG animated, but kind of it looks like. Did you ever watch Iron Man Armored Adventures on
The one on Nickelodeon?
Yeah, Nicktoons Network. Iron Man. That show was
Yeah.
cool. That was a cool show. But like how
It
that's
was.
kind of like cell shaded. This show
Yeah.
kind of it kind of looked like that. Did you even
Okay.
know? Did you even know this show was a thing? Star Wars Resistance on Disney XD.
Nah, that don't even sound. That don't sound like nothing.
They hardly advertised it. Like I didn't know it was a thing until well after it ended. But apparently it has something to do with the sequel trilogy, and they got Adam Driver to voice Kylo Ren in it, and I think Captain Phasma shows up. So I haven't seen it, so I don't know. And
Oh, this thing.
people don't
I ain't
really
never
talk
heard
about
of
it.
this.
So we're not going to talk about it because we can't speak authoritatively about it. But what we
Yeah, that
can
look
talk about,
crazy.
I heard it's okay, but I don't know. What we can't talk about is the big, the new business, which is Mando, the Mandalorian on Disney Plus.
Show me the one whose safety deemed such destruction. You must reunite it with its own kind.
Where?
This you must determine. The songs of eons past tell of battles between Mandalore the Great and an order of sorcerers called Jedi.
You expect me to search the galaxy and deliver this creature to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
You know this is no place for a child. Wherever I go, he goes. So I've heard. This is the way.
You want to take the wheel on this?
Well, I look at it like this. I can bring them in warm, or I can bring you in cold. That show kind of reminds me of like a Western in a sense with them one-liners.
Yeah.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
How they keep having
And what's the name?
the standoffs where they're like reaching for their guns and they're trying to the little Western standoff shootouts.
Pedro Pascal is so good. I'm glad he's I'm glad he's working, man, because he's a good actor.
He's been in
He's
been in a
I
bunch
first
of
got
stuff.
a taste of him in Game of Thrones. That's my first taste of Pascal.
For
I was
me,
like, this is a good.
For me, it
Go
was
ahead.
Narcos. He was a supporting character on Narcos.
Okay.
Interesting enough, the first two seasons he was a supporting character. Because Narcos was initially them going after what's his name?
Castro?
No, not Escobar, Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, Pablo Escobar. Yeah.
And so Pedro, he was teamed up with Boyd Holbrook, going up against Escobar. And then the third season, they move away. They move on to, I believe, the Cali cartel. And Pedro, he becomes the lead, at least as far as the good guys. He becomes the lead character. And he was actually the weakest part of the series. Like he was fine, but like he was the least interesting character because all the bad guys on the show, the actual cartel members, those were like the rock stars of the show. So it was just interesting to see Pedro in that quote unquote lead role and not really do much with the role. And then now you see him in Star Wars being, the guy. carrying the franchise on his back, as they say. But anyway, continue with the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I enjoyed Mando a lot. I enjoyed the fact how his suit evolved as the story progressed.
Yeah,
I love that.
Beskar.
And one of my favorite comedians, Bill Burr.
Yes.
He was in the show as well, which I was happy about that because I love me some Bill Burr.
He's great.
Even
he's
the
great.
final battle with
another with Giancarlo Esposito. Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah. Esposito.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was, because the armor he wears is very strong, very dense.
Yeah, Beskar.
And that's what it's called? Beskar?
Yeah, Beskar, yeah. It's like space adamantium.
And he was hitting him with that lightsaber and he was just blocking it. I thought that was a very dope moment, man.
Yeah.
Just to be able to use your arms and not get them cut off.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, the show, The Mandalorian, he's a character where he's a bounty hunter. Over the course of the series, you learn more about what he is in relation to the grander Star Wars universe. But the interesting thing about the show, at least when it starts off, is that it takes place after Episode 6. And it starts off pretty standalone, where like anyone can jump in and watch it and just appreciate these mostly original characters going around doing their thing. He's a bounty hunter, and in the first episode, the bounty ends up being little Grogu, the little baby Yoda. Baby Yoda, how'd you feel when he opened the thing and you see the little green ears and you see the little baby Yoda the first time? How'd you feel?
Well, I got it spoiled because I didn't watch Mandalorian when it came out. I waited like some months because I didn't have Disney Plus, and at that moment, I still didn't have Disney Plus. I was yo ho ho arg.
Aw.
You know what I mean? I was had my little pirate leg on.
Yeah.
So I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Yoda, was it? It was just one of his species.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that it wasn't actually Yoda, but it was just.
But people thinking it was Yoda.
Well, not necessarily. They just said because we don't know what that, or at least most people don't, because I don't know what that species is called. So we just called it, Baby Yoda, because he looked like a little miniature Yoda.
That was just so they can sell some toys, huh?
Yeah, but it was interesting because usually like Hot Toys or whatever, they spoil like characters in movies because the toys come out, or the listings for toys comes out before movies and TV shows. But
like with Black Panther.
But for Star Wars, or Disney, they actually kept that under wraps. Like no one knew that this character was coming up. So when I first saw it, that Tuesday that the first episode premiered, like that's what got me. Like just as a Star Wars fan, like that actually did get me seeing the little baby Yoda. I was like, man, this feels like Star Wars. I'm actually excited to see this. Like it was a wholesome moment. It made me feel like a kid again.
He was dope too, though, with his little force power.
Yeah,
holding his hand up.
Yeah. So I mean, the show is really cool. I think it's John Favreau.
He punched him a few times too.
Well, they got. I remember the stormtroopers like punched him at one point when.
And they threw him a few times.
Yeah, it's kind of
those moments was hilarious to me.
And then the baby, he's like 50 years old. Like I guess that species ages different from like everyone else.
Yeah.
So the thing with the show is a lot of fun. A lot of it is kind of like standalone adventures, as far as like, because there's a kind of overarching plot where like the Mandalorian, whose name is Din Djarin, he's trying to figure out what to do with this kid and to try to get him to his own kind, which is the Jedi. But like each episode, it's like he goes to a planet and says like, hey, can you help me with this? And they go, yeah, we'll help you if you help us do this. And like that's every episode. He has to do like side quests each episode.
Yeah.
But that's fun. Like that is kind of fun because you get to see different parts of the universe, different creatures and everything. And it is a lot of fun. The show looks incredible. It looks like, at times, it looks like the movies, just as good as the movies. Like second season, they fight these, I forgot what they're called, but like these dragons, I think crate dragons. And it looks incredible. I think they shot it in with IMAX cameras, and you could tell like it is like gorgeous to look at. The space
The second
battles.
season of Mandalorian, huh?
So the thing with the second season, that's when they start bringing in bigger ties to the grander Star Wars universe, including stuff from Clone Wars, which was we talked about how Solo in the movie Solo they brought back Darth Maul, and that was kind of like a super what do you call it, inside baseball moment, because like only people who've seen the show knew why he was still alive. What I liked about the Mandalorian was that it started to finally make the Clone Wars required viewing for these shows, because they bring in characters. They eventually bring in Ahsoka in live action for the first time, played by Rosario Dawson. They bring in
Okay, I didn't see the second season then.
Okay,
She's
yeah,
in the
yeah,
second season, right?
yeah, yeah,
Ahsoka.
yeah.
Okay, I
Ahsoka.
didn't get the second season. All right.
They bring in Bo-Katan, who's the Mandalorian from Clone Wars. They bring her in. I believe in the first season, that's when they bring in the dark saber. Which, if you had watched the shows, you know the last time we had seen
Yeah.
it was in Rebels. It's a whole thing, but again, like they're making the TV show, the cartoons, required viewing in order to understand what's going on in the show, which is cool for fans, and it's very it made me feel cool, because it's like you, as a fan, it felt earned, you know. They're rewarding the fans for, you know, keeping up with everything. That said, I will say outside of that, okay, so part of it is that Clone Wars, especially when it came back in the seventh season, it is so good that it kind of makes everything else that isn't as good, you know, not hit the same way. The Mandalorian, I think its strength is in how simple it is. Like, these characters are kind of character types, like archetypes, and you have, you know, the good versus evil, and then there's like gray area and everything. The thing is, when they bring in all these guest characters, either whether they be from the other shows or from the books or whatnot, they're there, but they are written pretty flatly. Like it's kind of like when they brought in the villains from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. They brought them into No Way Home, and you care about them because you had seen the previous movies. It's the same thing where, like, it's cool to see Ahsoka and see Bo-Katan, but you don't know anything about them outside of what you knew from the previous shows. There's no character development with them within the Mandalorian. So it's almost like they're your action figures here. They're just there because of fan service, and they do stuff and they're cool in action scenes. But as far as writing goes and having an emotional connection to them, it's not quite there. They're just there.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm glad you brought up Bill Burr, because they bring him back. He's in the first season, and then they bring him back in the second season. And his episode in the second season is like one of the best episodes of the series, of the Mandalorian series, because they actually do go into his backstory. They give him, you know, good motivation. Like, he's basically fed up with the Empire and what he's doing. And because they develop his character, there's a couple action scenes, and you were actually scared for him, because you're like, are they gonna kill him? Is he gonna come back? Is that it? It does a really good job of that, and I kind of wanted more of that from the Mandalorian. So, you know, it's coming back. They're doing a third season, obviously. I that's what I want to see more of, is more character development. There's also some weird inconsistencies. Because they reveal stuff about Din Djarin that it should kind of be a big deal. Like, you find out basically that he's part of Death Watch. He's not the regular, which, I mean, watching Clone Wars, you know, the Death Watch, they were the religious cult, right? They're the bad guys.
Yeah.
But they don't really address it or like dive into that. And that's like something interesting that they could do. But they don't really go into it really. And then there's the stuff with the Darksaber where, like, inconsistencies with, like, he takes it, and then Bo-Katan doesn't want to take it, even though she took it in Rebels. And it's a whole kind of can of worms to go into. It's kind of weird, and I don't know if that's part of the plan, stuff they will address later or what, but it's kind of stuff like that. Inconsistencies with the lore is kind of distracting, at least for me and for some people that I've read online. But the show's still good. Like, it's great. So definitely watch it, catch up when you can. But
you would play would you prefer season 1 or season 2?
not sure. I'm not sure. Uh, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know because there's things about both seasons. I would say season one's probably more consistent. I would say, but
Okay.
season two still like it looks great. The action scenes are great and everything. And that
Still
again,
solid.
that Bill Burr episode I absolutely love. So I don't know, but it's a solid show. Watch it. Like you'll be entertained definitely. So especially as a Star Wars fan, I would say. Okay, well let's move on to the next one, which is the Book of Boba Fett.
I am not a bounty hunter. I've heard otherwise. I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer. Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
You were all once captains under Jabba the Hutt.
I'm here to make a proposal that's mutually beneficial. Why speak of conflict when cooperation can make us all rich?
What prevents us all from killing you and taking what we want?
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
Please, speak freely.
Boba Fett, that was one of the things at the end of the season 2 premiere of Mandalorian. You see someone standing, looking at what's going on. He turns around, you see his face. You see that it's Tamura Morrison who played Boba Fett. He played Jango Fett in Episode 2, the movies, Episode 2. And then he voiced Boba Fett in the special editions of the original trilogy. And so finally, it's like, okay, Boba Fett's back. We're finally going to see what happened to him, after the Sarlacc pit and everything. And so he shows up in a couple episodes of Mando season 2, but now he has his own spin-off series. Did you watch the Book of Boba Fett?
I didn't watch Boba Fett. I didn't watch that one.
I gotta say, man, this series of him, it starts off, it shows how he escaped the Sarlacc pit, which is really cool. But this series, it's about him basically taking over Jabba's palace, because Jabba's dead, and so there's a power vacuum. So he takes the throne, and he's trying to build his crime syndicate and everything. This show is the definition of a mixed bag, man. It's so weird. It's 7 episodes. I think the first 2 episodes are great. They're a lot of fun. You're catching up with Boba. You get some flashbacks with him training with the Tusken Raiders. They finally go into the Tusken. They go. The Tusken Raiders. That's my just off topic, playing Lego Star Wars, the episode 1 level where you're doing the pod racing. My favorite cutscene is where you go through the canyon and the Tusken Raiders are shooting at you, and they go. And it's like, because there's hardly any voice acting in those early games, but like they got them down packed. So, but anyway, Boba Fett, they go into their culture and everything, so it's finally like humanizing those characters, which is cool.
Right.
First 2 episodes are great. Episodes 3 and 4 are kind of weird because they're really slow, kind of boring, and kind of silly because they introduce these cyberpunk dudes. Like there's this one black guy that's wearing this. They look like cosplayers. They look like cyberpunk cosplayers, and they're riding around on these like floating Vespas, multicolored Vespas. And people said they look like Power Rangers because there's like this chase scene where they're on their Vespas. It's so goofy, like it's so weird. There's like an edit. I don't know. You might have seen it on like TikTok or something where they played the Power Rangers theme song.
Get up!
Go Power Rangers.
I have seen no footage from it at all.
It is so weird. But like they have the black guy, he's like riding on the Vespa, and for no reason he like does this like flip, or like he goes up a building and he like jumps in the air, and it's clearly CG. Like it's a CG black dude. And then he lands back. It's like, why did he do that? What did that do? Like it's stupid. So episodes 3 and 4 are really weird and kind of slow and boring. Then episodes 5 and 6, Boba Fett doesn't show up at all. Like especially episodes 5, they said, you know what? Forget the Book of Boba Fett. We're gonna do Mandalorian season 2.5 instead. So like episodes 5, it's literally the Mandalorian going on his own adventure again.
Really?
Yeah, and it's an episode of The Mandalorian, and it is great. It is incredible. It's some of the best Star Wars ever. Literally, like I'm serious. Like it's so he goes on this crazy not moon planet, but it's a planet that's like it looks so it's weird. It looks like it's shaped like the crescent moon. It's like a spaceport. It looks gorgeous. He has the dark saber. There's this great fight scene with the saber that he does. And then episode 6, they continue the story with the Mandalorian. But then they also go into what's going on with Grogu, which at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian, Grogu goes off with Luke Skywalker to train with Luke. And they go into that. They go into Grogu's backstory. They flash back to Order 66, and they show Grogu in the temple when the stormtroopers are killing all the younglings.
Of course.
It looks great. And he's training with Luke. And again, some of the best Star Wars ever. Like it is incredible. And just the fan, like, I mean, a lot of it is fan service, but it works. Like you get the emotion behind it, you get that classic Star Wars feeling behind it. And then to top it all off, at the end, they introduce in live action, your boy Cad Bane shows up. Like you see a silhouette in the background. You see a silhouette, someone showing riding up. I think he's riding a banta or something, like some kind of animal. Or no, I think he's just walking or whatever. You see the silhouette, and in my head, I'm like, are they gonna? No, there's no way they're gonna. And you see the hat, you hear the voice, and you see the blue skin, and that blew my mind. I was like, oh my god, like they're actually brought in Cad Bane. So that episode was incredible. But the thing is, Boba Fett wasn't in it. Like he shows up, he has a cameo in that episode, basically. I don't think he even says anything. He just gives like a head nod. That's it. So like it's funny that the 2 best episodes of the series of Boba Fett, he's not even in. So it is just weird. And then the last episode, the Mandalorian, he gets reunited with Grogu, and then they team up with Boba Fett to save the day and stuff. And it's okay. It's kind of there's some fun stuff. Like you have Boba Fett riding a Rancor, which is kind of cool. But it's like a big, action scene. Again, they bring back the Power Rangers guys, and again, the black dude shows up, and he's in a shootout. And he like spins around for no reason. Like he does this Michael Jackson spin and shoots. And I don't know why he did that. Like that's a meme now too, but it didn't help him aim or anything. It's just really weird.
And he was black, right?
Yeah. He's like, and he does the hee and he like spins around and like it's just it's weird, man. I don't know. So again, Book of Boba Fett, it's the definition of a mixed bag. Like I'm glad that the 2 episodes that are basically Mandalorian Part 2.5. That's great. Seeing Cad Bane again is great. Cad Bane essentially becomes the main villain at the end, which is cool. They have a face off. But I don't know. They don't need to bring this character. I mean, they could bring the character back, but they don't need to bring the show back. It seems like they had an idea for it, but this could have been like a 2-part special as part of Mandalorian season 2 or season 3 or whatever. Like Boba Fett didn't need his own show, at least for what they ended up doing with him. So and anyway, but I mean it's fun. You can watch it. It's 7 episodes, but yeah. One more thing about Boba Fett, your boy Thundercat, because you like
Oh
that guy,
yeah, I
right?
heard he was in it.
Yeah, he
Well,
shows
I
up.
would say, I wouldn't say I've met him at
Oh,
my
you met him?
job.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But
is he cool?
I got a few of his songs. Yeah, he's a swaggy out dude. Like he got some swag on him. But I've listened to a few of his songs. He makes good music. But other than that, that's I just now like got into him recently.
I was unfamiliar with him. I didn't know who he was until after people were talking about him. He has a song out right now. He's featured with the Gorillas.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a song with them called Cracker Island. And yeah, it's a pretty good song. But anyway, he was on Boba Fett, and I'm glad he's
I heard he was trash. His performance was trash.
I mean, he could use some work, I would say. Like like he says, like, aren't you a little old to be in here? And it's like, come on, man. Like that was the best take you had? Like you could, I don't know. Like it's just like, I mean, it was something. And apparently he's coming back because there's a post-credit scene where they show him. So it's like, okay, whatever. Also, they have a black Wookiee named Chrysanthemum, Black Chrysanthemum.
How is that even possible?
Well, no, like the fur is black. The fur is black.
All right.
He looks like somebody's granddaddy. Apparently he's from the comics. Apparently he's like a popular character. But what they do with him here is kind of weird. Like they kind of nerf him, I would say. But
you think they're gonna have a white Wookiee or a red one?
A red Wookiee?
Wookiees who dye their hair because
I'm sure that there'll be something. But anyway, that's enough for Boba Fett. Let's move on to the next one, which is the most recent animated series, at least a canonical animated series, which is Star Wars: The Bad Batch.
A test is in order. 5 enhanced clones, more capable than an army. Yet they exhibit a concerning level of disobedience and disregard for orders.
What else you got? Give me more!
Our squad's nothing but trouble. But we get the job done.
You're Clone Force 99.
You know who we are.
Hunter.
Let's go.
Echo.
Hyperdrive's online!
Tick.
Prepping to jump.
Ricker.
Let's blow something up! Yeah!
And Crosshair.
Your move.
We're all you need.
I want Clone Force 99 found and wiped out.
The galaxy's a dangerous place to be.
We need to get out of here. What do you say, kid? You want to come with us?
How can I help?
The Clone Wars have ended. You can either adapt and survive, or die with the past. The decision is yours.
We do what we do. Strap in, kid.
Have you watched this?
Damn, I haven't seen that one either. I've seen Obi-Wan. I've seen Obi-Wan though.
All right, I got Bad Batch. I'll run through pretty quickly. Basically, those 4
break
episodes.
it down for me.
those 4 episodes of the last season of Clone Wars that Disney Plus put out, essentially where Anakin's teamed up with Anakin and Rex are teamed up with the mutant clones, the Bad Batch. That was
Okay, I seen
basically
that. I think I seen one episode of the Bad Batch. Okay.
okay. Yeah. Well, those episodes of Clone Wars were basically a backdoor pilot for this show. We didn't know it at the time, but eventually they announced it, and it makes sense because it uses the same animation as the last season of Clone Wars, which is excellent. Like the animation looks incredible. That's what we were talking about when we said we wanted Disney to put Disney money into these shows. The animation is top notch, incredible. Basically, the show has to do with these clone mutants. Um, who they all have special abilities. They're like with the X-Men of clones, but also since they're mutants, the chips in their heads that would cause them to betray the Jedi during Order 66, it doesn't work, and so all these other clones are killing the Jedi, but these guys aren't, and so they're trying to navigate the empire, the rising empire, navigate the world because they're essentially defective, so they're trying to make their own path and figure out what's going on. So you saw one episode. Did you see the premiere? It was like 90 minutes.
And what remind me what the one episode is, because I remember them all together talking.
Do you remember Omega, the little girl, or Omega?
Let me look at the picture.
So basically, they encounter a girl mutant. It's basically the girl version of young Boba Fett, where it's instead of because most of the clones of Jango Fett are male, but one of them named Omega is a girl, a little girl, and essentially the Bad Batch, they take her under their wing and they go on their adventures to
Were these
save
dudes on any other series? I feel like they
just
look
Clone Wars,
familiar.
just Clone Wars.
Okay.
The thing about the show, that premiere, the first episode, which was like 90 minutes, it was basically like a movie. That was really good. Like it was what I liked about it. Continued, what I liked about Clone Wars, where like even though it was animated, it still felt mature. You had the characters acting like adults. It didn't feel like Disney making like a kid show. Of course, he had the emotion behind it because you had these characters, these clones, having to deal with the situation where they're supposed to betray the Jedi and whatnot. And then you have the interactions between the Bad Batch and the little girl Omega, which was a lot of fun. It was wholesome. But even though she's a kid character, she's not annoying or like precocious or anything. Like she's still an interesting character. And then and also kind of within the Bad Batch themselves, there's one character whose chip is kind of working. So he's kind of struggling against his programming where he wants to follow orders and
He wants to kill a Jedi.
right, yeah, because he says good soldiers follow orders, and so there's kind of like the tension right there. The thing with the show itself is it gets kind of repetitive because these characters, they start off interesting, but they don't do much in the way of character development. It's kind of similar to with the characters on The Mandalorian, where they're there and they're going on adventures, but you're not learning anything new about these characters. And if you do, it's kind of bits and pieces. But because there's not enough character development there, it is kind of hard to get invested in what's going on. So I kind of struggled at a point getting through the first season, even to the point where I don't think I finished the first season. I think I have like 4 episodes left, and I didn't really feel compelled to continue because it's like they're just doing the same thing. Like I don't really, it's kind of like Rebels, where like I'm not invested in these characters really. They do bring in other stuff from other shows and whatnot, like, and even what do you call it? They have younger versions of the characters from Rebels come in, and that's cool. But the show is coming back for another season, and hopefully they'll tighten up the writing a bit. I think the potential is there for them to bring in Maul at some point, because there's a gap between where Maul leaves Clone Wars at the end of Clone Wars and where he ends up in Rebels. And there's a lot of storytelling real estate there because that's a good chunk of time. So I'm wondering if he's going to come in contact with the Bad Batch at some point. And if that does happen, that'll definitely get me interested in at least giving the show another shot. But other than that, it's okay. But there's not much to say about it. So, do you plan on watching the show or?
Once you said it reminds you of Rebels, I'm like, you know what?
I mean, it's better than Rebels, kind of, I
Oh,
guess,
it's better.
but
Oh, kinda.
I don't know. But I did say that I did like Rebels, like again when I rewatched it.
Yeah, me too.
So,
I liked it too. It was just
so
not memorable.
yeah, it's the same thing. Like the Bad Batch is kind of it's not really memorable, at
And
least
that's
right
all.
now.
That's always the shame to me when you watch something and it just doesn't, stick with you.
Yeah.
Like that sucks.
Well, it's the same thing with what I said about the DVR, where like the episodes pile up. With Bad Batch, you get a new episode every week, but like I wasn't looking forward to it every week. Like it'll get to the point where the weekend would come and I'll be like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't watch the episode this week. I guess I'll watch it. And then it got to a point where those episodes that I had missed started stacking up. So, but anyway, okay, let's wrap up with the most recent series, which is the one that a lot of people were looking forward to. Of course, your boy Obi-Wan Kenobi.
The fight is done. We lost.
Stay hidden.
The key to hunting Jedi is patience. Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail. The Jedi Code is like an itch. He cannot help it. Where is he?
Kenobi.
All right, you did watch this though, right?
I watched this one.
Okay, give me a break from
I
talking.
watched this one.
Take the wheel.
I'm gonna let Jesus take the wheel.
Jesus take the wheel.
That's
not how that song goes. Anyway,
I thought there's like moments where I felt it was slow, but I guess they were building up to what was happening next.
Well, go into what the show's about with the premise.
Oh,
of the show.
yeah. So if you haven't figured it out by now, Star Wars Obi-Wan is based around the character Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah, nincompoop. Yeah, and it just takes place after the executed Order 66. Obi-Wan is on the run, and he's also protecting Padme and Anakin Skywalker's offspring, formerly known as Anakin Skywalker. Now he's Darth Vader. And you take a look at the lens through Obi-Wan's eyes, and I think when it comes to before I get into that, there's also another character. I forget her name.
Leia?
Who?
Princess Leia?
Nah, the black woman.
Oh, the Inquisitor.
The Inquisitor.
What's her? Moses Ingram's character. What's her name? Reva.
Yeah,
Reva.
Okay. Yeah.
So
and it also.
Just to explain. So after Order 66, Vader he's going after the remaining Jedi that are still alive, and so he has these Inquisitors who are I guess they're not quite Sith. They're like evil Jedi or something. That wasn't entirely clear to me. They were in. I know they're in the comics, and I know they were in Rebels. Like even some of
Rebels,
them,
yeah.
some of the ones that were in Rebels were on this show in live action. Um, but the one you're talking about is Riva, the black woman, and she's on here, and she's the Inquisitor. There's a whole controversy about her because apparently Star Wars isn't allowed to have black characters, and people hate that. But I mean, we don't have to
But
get into
we gotta have butt ugly aliens though, because that makes sense.
that. Anyway,
You know what I
continue.
mean?
Continue with.
Yeah, but you know, it shows you the life of Obi-Wan. It shows you the life of Reva, and you know, Obi-Wan is dealing with the struggle of his. Like I guess he thought Anakin was dead. Um, and you know, eventually they cross paths, and Reva's character, which was who was an Inquisitor, but she was a Jedi in training, a Padawan, not a Padawan,
A
a
youngling.
youngling.
Yeah.
And she wanted revenge on. Spoiler alert! So if you haven't seen it, get out of this podcast and come back. She wanted revenge on Darth Vader because he killed all her friends as Anakin, not as Vader. Um, and the battles, man, like eventually they do meet up. Obi-Wan meets up with Darth. He gets beat the first time because you know that's his. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. He was still on that time, but he threw that out the window. I feel like he threw that out the window when he was giving the business at that rock formation location. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed those moments, like those moments of like that show had memorable moments, you know, of characters passing away, and you know, battles between like the Reva and Darth battle was just like if when you watch that, you know what's gonna happen. She ain't on Darth Vader level.
Yeah. Yeah.
She ain't on Darth Vader. Like she was swinging that lightsaber, and he was putting his hand up to block it. Yo, like
Yeah.
that lets you know the difference of power. And I felt like that moment, like Vader, like it's Darth Vader is such an interesting character because he is evil, but he also is a very loving person. In a sense, he still, in my opinion, I see he still has a loving side on people who he might have done wrong or people he might have knew in his past. Like Obi-Wan,
Loving?
for example.
Wait, really? Loving?
I think
Vader?
like I think so. It's just like, you know,
He
people
burnt
who
his.
are hateful, they really either A want to be loved or B still have some sort of love, not like, oh, give me a hug, but there's still something in his heart that, like Reva, like he didn't kill her. He could have easily, like when he chopped Dooku's arm off, he finished him off
And his head
with
off.
a double. He cut his head off. He finished
Yeah.
him off. But for her, he said something like, "You didn't think I always knew it was you?
Yeah.
I was just, letting it all play out." And he opens the lightsaber in her gut, and he could have, force choked or electrocuted or whatever, but he just walked away. And now maybe you could say that was just for the writing to keep her alive, but I look at it as like a character move because there was moments, even like Obi-Wan, like you said, he did burn him, but he didn't kill him.
Yeah.
He didn't kill him, man. Like from what we know, like he's a killer. Darth Vader he kills.
Yeah.
He kills. That's why I said I sense like a loving. Well, I'm saying loving. He still empathizes with them, even though he's a terrible person.
Yeah. Well,
Tell me what
okay.
you think.
This is gonna be another okay, well before I get into okay, so I was excited for the show. Like the thing is it was hyped up because they're bringing back Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, who of course they played those characters in the prequels, and so it's the first time seeing them come back to reprise their roles in live action. And the first episode, I thought the first episode of Obi-Wan was great. It opened with the recap of the movies, and that was awesome. Like, it actually made the prequels look a lot better than they actually are. um, I know we both like the prequels, but like, I mean, that recap was like awesome. The way they made everything look, and the feels, it hit you in the feels with the nostalgia and everything. But that first episode, it was slow, but I did appreciate it was working as like a character study for Obi-Wan, because of course, he's uh, fallen on hard times, to put it lightly. The Jedi's, all his friends have gotten killed, and then his best friend, his
Damn.
brother, he had to kill, Anakin, or at least he assumed he killed him. And so now, he's in almost, I mean, basically exile. He's he's on Tatooine. He's looking after Luke, but he's hiding who he is. He's like cut himself off from the Force. He has to go against his nature when people are being mistreated around him. He can't do anything about it because he can't reveal who he is, because of course that will put his life in danger, but it will also put Luke's life in danger. I love the interactions between him and Uncle Owen. And they brought back Joel Edgerton as Uncle Owen, which, Joel Edgerton,
Love Joel.
he shows up randomly at the end of episode 3 as Uncle Owen in the movie. I remember the most recent time I watched, not most recent, but when I did watch Revenge of the Sith again, after seeing Joel Edgerton in other movies, I was like, wait, is that Joel Edgerton? And he's only in it for like 2 seconds, so it's cool that they brought him back. Their interactions is great. That whole thing is Obi-Wan saying like, hey, the boy needs to be trained, and Joel says like, yeah, like you trained his father, and it's like, that's savage. That was great. Bringing in Reva and that whole thing where she's like, she cut that woman's arm off, because she's trying to find out where the Jedi are. That was great. That first episode was great. And then they introduce young Leia, or not, Princess Leia, and she gets kidnapped by a flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that was kind of when I was going. That second episode where Leia and Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan basically he's approached by Jimmy Smits, Senator Organa, to go after Leia, because she's been taken by bounty hunters, and so Obi-Wan has to step away from his position protecting Luke and go on this adventure to find Leia. Eventually, they meet. That second episode where they're together and running across rooftops and stuff, that's when I kind of got nervous. I was like, this isn't as good as the first episode, and it's not as good as I thought this show would be. But maybe it's just fluke or something. I don't know. It's fine. The actress that plays Leia, I think she does a good job. She does capture the essence of what Carrie Fisher is. Like, she looks like her. She looks just like her, and she didn't get on my nerves because she's a little girl. But she wasn't precocious or anything. I thought she did a good job, but like, just what they were having her and Obi-Wan do, it was kind of like, that's what you got for these characters. It's okay. Eventually, like you said, Vader realizes what's going on. He's coming after Obi-Wan, and so you're excited because you're like, okay, finally they're gonna interact again. You're gonna have that conversation, that hard conversation, similar to Vader when he met Ahsoka again, because it's like, what have you become? Like, what is going on? And that third episode where they meet for the first time and they quote unquote fight, it was underwhelming to me. Again, I think
Obi-Wan and
Vader,
Vader?
Yeah,
I would agree with that. It was definitely underwhelming.
What I really wanted was a conversation, and what they say is very basic. It's like, what did you do? And he's like, or what have you become? And he's like, I'm what you made of me. And it's like, that's it? That's all you're gonna say? And then the fight wasn't all that greatly choreographed, in my opinion. And then the show continues, and you get Ice Cube Jr., or O'Shea Jackson Jr., and he's there, and then these other characters they bring in that you don't really care about, and that underwhelming is what I would say with this whole series. It's like, you're bringing these actors back. Hayden, for what they do with him, I think he was great. I mean, both him and Ewan McGregor, they're great. but Hayden, he's often criticized for his acting in the prequels, but this definitely, as far as redemption, showing how good an actor he is, he definitely does a good job.
I thought he
And
was solid in the prequels.
it wasn't his fault. It was just the directing in the prequels. Like he gets the job done, but there is kind of awkward. It's sand, it's rough, and it's coarse, and it gets everywhere, and kind of. But here you can see like clearly he is a good actor. But I don't know. Riva, like I hate the controversy with him, where everyone there with her, as far as like people are racist. They say you can't have black characters in Star Wars. Like that's so stupid. Again, like not only because she's black, but also because she's a woman too. Like that's the criticism that the show has gotten, and the racist comments that she gets. That it's uncalled for. Like obviously, like it's stupid.
It's
Like
just losers.
yeah, it's
Losers
like
with no lives
it's like why
complaining
do
on the internet like they
it's,
do.
yeah. But that said, the character kind of isn't great. I don't think. Like I didn't care about. I thought honestly, I thought she was the mindset, her plan to get to Vader was really stupid. Like you're
Mhm.
going to the way she tried to kill him by having her lightsaber 5 feet away from him and then igniting it. No, if you're gonna stab somebody, you go up to them and stab them in the back. You don't do that. And then again, she knows who he is, so like she knows that he's gonna sense what she's doing. So again, that's stupid.
Mhm.
Um, the fact that characters now can get stabbed and they'll survive. And yes, we
Yeah.
know, Maul got cut in half and he survived. Yes, of course. But
But it's a lightsaber. It's extremely hot.
so he gets
So
cauterized.
Get
The wound.
cauterized. You know what I mean?
But like all these characters now, they could get stabbed and it's fine. They no injuries or anything. They could walk it off. Like that happens to so many characters on this show. So
Yeah.
when Riva gets stabbed,
That was interesting.
so when you say Vader stabs her, and he's being a good, like, having a heart by not killing her, it's like, no, he's just being stupid. Like, why would you leave the person that's trying to kill you alive? That's stupid. Um, and
I kind of compare him to what's his name, Kylo Ren. Like you know how Kylo Ren, just to jump off real quick, Kylo Ren he killed his dad, but he ultimately sees the light. Um, like I feel like Vader is redeemable. Um, like in Episode 6, he kind of redeems himself when he takes off his helmet.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know
but
what I
that's
mean?
yeah, but that's like that's decades from this point. At this point where he's like full on, the Emperor's right hand man. Like he doesn't care about Riva. Like he also the fact that Riva knows who he is, and only a few people know that Vader is Anakin. So like, why would he want her to still be alive and
That's what
potentially
I'm
tell
saying. Like
people?
why did he keep her alive?
Because
I thought what did you say?
well, I was just gonna say it's bad writing. Like it's just it's bad. She should have been killed. Like that's stupid.
Like
Uh,
I try to look at it as through a character standpoint and a writing. As from a writing standpoint, it's like, yeah, why would you do that? But from a character, is maybe he's taking pity on her, you know.
that's a very generous look at it. So the other thing is, the same thing when he fights Obi-Wan again, their big climactic battle, which they hyped up. It was shaky cam and the fight. It was underwhelming. I mean, underwhelming because like again, they have a quote unquote conversation, but they're not really saying anything really. Nothing new is brought to the table, and the fight itself is kind of just, it's just whatever. And again, Vader has a chance to kill Obi-Wan, but he doesn't. Like he buries him under the rocks and then he walks away, assuming that he's dead. And it's like, why would you do that? Like this guy is like it's
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
yeah, like it didn't make any sense to me. The best part of it is when Obi-Wan slashes his helmet and you do see Anakin's face and like his voice is like modulated and it like
Yeah.
goes between Hayden's voice and James Earl Jones's voice. That was the best part because finally you get some character where he's saying, Obi-Wan, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. And you could that's something you could read into, saying like maybe that is Anakin, like the last bit of Anakin saying like, hey, don't blame yourself. Like it wasn't you. Like you did the best you could. I'm the one who did this. Like maybe you could say that. But that's the only moment in the series that really like felt genuinely effective as far as that's concerned for me. This whole series, it felt like a waste, man. Like you're bringing these characters back, but for what? For this, really? And
Mhm.
I don't know. I was very underwhelmed by it. And I
Mm.
mean, some people seem to like it. I know you like it. Some people
It was
say
entertaining.
I I don't know. Like it's like you might as well have not even tried. Like it's like if that's the
Mm.
best you guys got. Like they say they're gonna do another season, and like I hope not. Like just let it be. Just have them sit in Tatooine, have them meet Maul and Rebels, and I'm good. Like it's if that's what you're gonna do. So, but whatever. It's a show. So I hate to end this on a downer. um,
Nah, that's how
anything
it goes over here.
I don't know. Like I know because
I
we
think
did this. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
to conclude, I would say when I really like take a step back and look at the character of Anakin, I think Anakin was still I think Anakin was still a boy. He still had boyish tendencies, reacting off every emotion
Mm,
instead of thinking before he takes action. Like when
yeah.
what's his name? Purple lightsaber Samuel Jackson. What's his character name?
Mace Windu.
Windu. When Mace Windu was telling us like Anakin, Chancellor, blah blah this, blah blah that. Anakin, uh, he struck him, chopped his arms off, and
Yeah.
got him out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh my God, what have I done? You did what was necessary." You know what I
Mm,
mean? Yeah, I was just thinking about that as you was breaking down like the Darth Vader. I think Anakin is just a little. It reminds me so much of Kylo Ren. Like they're very
yeah.
similar, little boys who
Yeah.
haven't grown up yet.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And no, I could definitely see that. But it's not. Again, like I said, Clone Wars is so good. The writing is so good that like if the live
That's
action
caliber.
shows, yeah, that's the gold standard, the platinum standard. So if the live action shows can't match up to that, it's disappointing.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel
but
you.
I mean, there's some fun stuff. Like it was cool seeing Tamara Morrison play a clone for the first time, at
Hmm.
least in live action. That was cool when they're in the city. Um, I will agree the fight between Vader and Reva, that was cool. At least just Vader just basically toying with her because like he
Yeah,
knew that she wasn't gonna get to him. That was cool. And James Earl Jones, like apparently it was just an AI voice generator that they used for him for the voice
really,
because he sounds a lot more
really.
youthful. He sounds youthful and energetic a lot more than he did in Rogue One. So if that's the case, like that technology is scary good because that was a good performance that he gave. Um, and Ewan McGregor's great. Hayden is great. I like the flashback that they did when they were dueling. That was fun.
Hmm.
But overall, the show is kind of like, yeah, it's just it's there. It's whatever. But yeah, that's at the time of this recording, that's the last of the shows. They do have Andor coming out in September about Cassian Andor from Rogue One.
I
Diego
probably
Luna.
won't watch that.
Have you seen the trailer for it?
No.
Man, it looks incredible. Like seriously, it looks the trailers. I'm saying, especially the last trailer they
Whoa,
released.
maybe I might have
The,
seen it.
there was a trailer recently that they put out, and it looks awesome. Like it actually, they're bringing back Forrest Whitaker's coming back for it because it's a prequel to Rogue One. Um,
Okay,
but it looks like Game of Thrones, but in space and actually good.
Game of
Just
Thrones was good.
I we could at a later date we could talk about that. But no, this looks good because there's not it looks like it's not going to be a lot of I'm sure there's going to be action in there at space battles, but it's more like politics and like these different space politicians in space doing these weird crazy things and like the crime syndicate and everything. It looks very different from what we've gotten so far, and also it looks mature. Like it looks very adult as far as the subject matter and stuff. It's just dealing with crime and politics and whatnot, and also they're using a different type of filmmaking. I forgot what it's called, but it literally looks visually it looks incredible. It looks like the movies, whereas Obi-Wan kind of looked kind of cheap. Um, but Andor looks like great. So we'll see how it goes. Um, but yeah, as I know we got to wrap up. I don't know how long this episode is going to end up being. But anything else before we wrap up Star Wars?
Yeah, I said what I said about the little boys, little boys that
um,
it said.
so yeah, I mean, like all I know we've been talking, criticizing and talking about this, but Star Wars, the reason we're both passionate about is because we both love Star Wars and we want to see this series continue and to grow and to develop and go in interesting directions, and we want
Yeah.
it to still be good. So there's a million shows and movies apparently coming out, and not all. It's the same with Marvel. Like not all of them are going to be good, but we do hope that you know at least some of them are and of quality. So because
Mm-hmm.
when we have kids, we're going to introduce them to Star Wars too, and I can't wait to watch Clone Wars with my kids when I have kids. Like, because I'm going to be more into it than they are. I'm going to be like, let's watch another episode. And they're going to be like, can't we watch Paw Patrol or whatever? Um, yeah, no, I still love the series, and it's just you get so invested in these characters, you want to see them be the best that they can be, but
Mm-hmm.
that's how it goes. So, but anyway, guys, let's wrap up this episode. Um, Thank you again for listening. We got more fun stuff to come. Next week's episode, I'm sure, is going to be one of our best. So stay tuned for that. But if there's nothing else, this has been the catch up, the Sean and Dameon show. I am Sean.
I am Dameon.
Yes. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.
Peace.